Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel Learn with Michaela. If you're studying the GCSE AQA Love and Relationships Anthology, you're in the right place. Today we're diving into a poem called Love's Philosophy by Percy Bysshe Shelley, and this is the second poem in the Love and Relationships Poetry Anthology. We're going to break it down together, discover its key themes, and also have a look at how Percy Shelley advocates nature as a great argument for love. By the end of this video, I guarantee that you will absolutely ace your analysis for this essay. So before we jump in, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications icon so that you can be notified every single time I post another English literature video. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's jump into Love's Philosophy by Percy Shelley. So we'll start with a summary. Love's Philosophy is a lyrical poem written by Percy Shelley. It was published in 1819, and it's a persuasive plea for romantic and physical union, where the speaker uses natural imagery to argue that love is a fundamental law of nature. The poem consists of 2 stanzas, each emphasizing the interconnectedness of the natural world. Rivers merging with oceans, wind blending, and flowers mingling their scents. The speaker concludes each stanza with a rhetorical question, asking why their love is not reciprocated if all of nature adheres to this philosophy of unity. So it's an incredibly persuasive poem. Now, for a bit of context, Shelley had some very turbulent and unconventional relationships which reflect his radical ideas about love, marriage, and personal freedom. At the time this poem was published in 1819, Shelley was deeply immersed in exploring philosophical and emotional themes through his writing. His second wife, Mary Shelley, was the author of Frankenstein, and their relationship was passionate yet complicated. This poem can be read as both a general exploration of love and perhaps a personal expression of Shelley's desire for deeper connection. So, throughout their love life, it was very turbulent, and at many points during their relationship, they were apart due to difficulties. So, this could be a really great contextual point which could link to the poem's speaker. So, for some literary context, Love's Philosophy is a quintessential example of romantic poetry, a literary movement that emerged in the late 18th century as a reaction to the Industrial Revolution and the Age of Enlightenment. Romantic poems like Shelley, Wordsworth, Keats, and Coleridge celebrated emotion, imagination, and the beauty of nature. The poem reflects key romantic themes such as nature as a source of truth. We see that Shelley uses natural imagery to highlight the idea of interconnectedness and unity. Emotion over reason. The poem is an emotional appeal focusing on love as a natural and universal force rather than a logical argument. And the sublime. The imagery of vast and powerful forces like rivers and oceans evokes the romantic fascination with the sublime, a sense of awe inspired by nature's grandeur. We've also got the lyric tradition in Love's Philosophy, as it's part of this tradition characterized by its personal voice and emotional depth. Lyric poems often express feelings or ideas directly using vivid imagery and musical language. The poem's structured rhyme scheme, ABAB, and rhythmic flow contribute to its lyrical quality. Shelley was also greatly influenced by past traditions, such as the metaphysical poets like John Donne. Shelley uses a persuasive argument and vivid metaphors to make his case for love. His rhetorical questions and the intellectual playfulness of the poem echo metaphysical poetry. And pastoral poetry, the celebration of nature as a harmonious force, ties the poem to the pastoral tradition, which idealizes rural life and natural beauty as a source of purity and inspiration. There's also this literary debate on love and nature. The poem participates in a broader romantic literary debate about whether love is an instinctual universal force or a uniquely human construct. Shelley's speaker argues for love as a fundamental natural law using the interconnectedness of rivers, oceans, and flowers to highlight its inevitability. In literary terms, Love's philosophy exemplifies romantic ideals while maintaining ties to earlier poetic traditions, blending the philosophical with the lyrical to explore timeless questions about love and human connection. So let's start by taking a look at stanza 1 then. The fountains mingle with the river, and the rivers with the ocean. The winds of heaven mix forever with a sweet emotion. Nothing in the world is single, all things are by a law divine. In one another's being mingle, why not I with thine? A really nice use of rhyme scheme there. So the fountains mingle with the river. This line introduces the central metaphor of natural unity. The image of fountains merging with rivers symbolizes smaller entities joining larger ones, suggesting harmony and interconnection. The speaker begins to build the argument that everything in nature is interconnected, setting the stage for the comparison with human love. And the river with the ocean. The rivers flowing into the ocean extend the metaphor to emphasize the inevitability of unity in nature. The progression from smaller to larger bodies of water signifies a natural hierarchical merging. This implies that just as rivers and oceans unite, human relationships should also follow this natural course. The winds of heaven mix forever. The winds are depicted as eternally blending in the sky, reinforcing the idea of constant and universal mixing. This image adds a spiritual dimension with heaven, suggesting that this unity is divinely ordained. The fact that heaven is capitalized also suggests an air of importance to the speaker. With a sweet emotion personifies the winds, making the mingling seem tender and romantic. This line suggests that love and connection in nature are not merely physical, but also emotional, hinting at the speaker's desire for a deeper bond. Nothing in the world is single. Now, this declarative statement serves as the philosophical core of the poem, asserting that everything in the universe is interconnected. It prepares the ground for the speaker's arguments that human relationships should reflect this universal truth. And all things by a law divine. The phrase law divine attributes the interconnectedness of nature to a higher, almost sacred power. It's almost as if the speaker is using this argument to strengthen the claim that love is not just a human desire, but a divine principle. As in, if you want to argue love, you've got to take that way higher than with me. In one spirit meet and mingle. The idea of a single spirit uniting all things adds a philosophical and almost mystical dimension to the poem. This line underscores the speaker's belief that love is a spiritual necessity, not just a physical or emotional one. And of course, the end of the stanza ends with, why not I with thine? This is a great use of a rhetorical question which directly addresses the beloved. The speaker challenges them to follow the natural and divine law of unity. This question also reveals the speaker's longing and frustration, as they cannot understand why their lover remains unreciprocated. The lover clearly does not want to reciprocate the love that they feel. Now let's take a look at stanza 2. See the mountains kiss high heaven, and the waves clasp one another. No single flower would be forgiven if it disdained its brother. And the sunlight clasps the earth, and the moonbeams kiss the sea. What are all these kissings worth, if thou kiss not me? So, see the mountains kiss high heaven. The imagery of mountains kissing heaven is both grand and intimate, blending the sublime with the tender. This metaphor further supports the argument that all elements in nature seek connection and closeness. And the waves clasp one another. The waves clasping each other evoke a sense of physical embrace, emphasizing unity through movement and touch. This tactile imagery could also highlight the physical aspect of love, subtly suggesting the speaker's own desire for intimacy. No sister flower would be forgiven. The personification of flower introduces a moral dimension, implying that failing to connect would be an unforgivable act against nature. The speaker strengthens their argument by suggesting that isolation is unnatural and even wrong. If it disdained its brother, the pairing of sister flower and brother emphasizes companionship and mutual respect in nature. This line could also subtly criticize the beloved for disdaining the speaker's love, as it goes against nature's example. And the sunlight clasps the earth. This is a great example of another powerful image of connection, symbolizing warmth, nurturing, and life. The speaker uses this universal and necessary relationship to argue that love is essential and inevitable. And the moonbeams kiss the sea. The moonlight's gentle kiss on the sea evokes a sense of romance and tenderness, tying celestial elements to human emotions. The celestial imagery elevates love to a cosmic level, reinforcing its universality and importance. What are all these kissings worth? This rhetorical question introduces a note of doubt or frustration, as we have seen previously, but more doubt in this sense. The speaker questions the value of nature's harmony if it cannot inspire a similar connection in human relationships. This line conveys the speaker's emotional vulnerability as their longing remains unfulfilled. It could also suggest this idea that the speaker's questioning if humanity is so flawed that it cannot even reciprocate what nature can. If thou kiss not me, the final line is a direct plea addressing the beloved with simplicity and emotional weight. The repetition of the rhetorical question underscores the speaker's desperation and the central argument that love is natural, necessary, and inevitable. So now that we have broken down the poem, let's take a look at some symbolism and key themes. So there is a lot of water imagery throughout the poem. Rivers and oceans symbolize merging and unity, underscoring the natural inevitability of love. Air and wind is also very significant. We have the mingling of winds, which could signify an unseen yet powerful connection, much like the bond of love. And flowers and sweetness. The imagery of flowers exchanging scents conveys tenderness and mutual sharing. So some key themes include interconnectedness in nature. The poem illustrates how all elements of nature are intrinsically connected. Rivers flow into the ocean and winds mix, symbolizing harmony and unity. This natural fusion serves as a metaphor for human relationships, especially romantic love. Unfulfilled love. Despite the speaker's philosophical argument, there is an undercurrent of longing and frustration. The rhetorical questions at the end of each stanza highlight the speaker's emotional vulnerability and the pain of unreciprocated love. And we also have persuasion and desire. The poem is an attempt to persuade the speaker's beloved by presenting love as a universal and unavoidable truth. The logic presented is almost irrefutable. If nature itself follows this principle, why should humans be an exception? So it's a really nice idea that we should reciprocate nature. Now let's take a look at structure and form. Love's Philosophy is a lyrical poem composed of 2 stanzas, each containing 8 lines, also known as octaves. It is a short, compact piece that balances philosophical reasoning with emotional appeal. And despite it being very short, I would say it is a very powerful poem. As mentioned previously, the poem follows an A-B-A-B-C-D-C-D rhyme scheme in both stanzas, which creates a musical and harmonious rhythm that mirrors the theme of unity and connection. But also the alternating rhyme scheme could reinforce the idea of interconnection and balance, echoing the natural harmony Shelley describes. Alternatively, we could say that the way the poem is structured is very contrary to the content that it is written. We see that Shelley is struggling, or the poet is, or the speaker is struggling to get across their viewpoint, and they are trying to suggest how harmonious nature is, despite the relationship being the opposite of that. The poem is written in iambic tetrameter, meaning each line typically contains 4 iambs, unstressed syllables. This meter gives the poem a light, flowing rhythm that complements its theme of natural unity. However, Shelley occasionally employs metrical variation, adding emphasis to certain words or ideas. For instance, a rhetorical question disrupts the steady rhythm, reflecting the speaker's emotional urgency. Each stanza follows a similar pattern. The first 6 lines, the speaker describes unity in nature through vivid imagery and metaphors. The final 2 lines, the stanza concludes with a rhetorical question directly addressing the beloved. This structure creates a progression from observation, nature's harmony, to personal appeal, the speaker's longing. The repetition of this pattern across both stanzas emphasizes the speaker's consistent argument and unresolved frustration. We've also got the use of rhetorical questions in stanza 1, why not I with thine? And in stanza 2, if thou kissed not me. These questions serve as the emotional climax of the poem, highlighting the speaker's vulnerability and making the personal connection the poem's focal point, which is also quite essential. Now let's take a look at tone and flow. The flowing structure of the poem, enhanced by its rhyme, meter, and natural imagery, creates a sense of harmony and inevitability, mirroring the theme of interconnectedness. However, the rhetorical questions introduce a contrasting tone of longing and incompleteness, revealing the speaker's frustration and unfulfilled desire. So the persuasive tone of love's philosophy is primarily very strong. So the speaker uses nature as a metaphorical argument to convince the beloved to reciprocate their love. By presenting unity in nature as inevitable and divinely ordained, the speaker appeals to both logic and emotion. For example, nothing in the world is single, all things by a law divine. This statement has a confident and assertive tone, suggesting the speaker's certainty about their argument. And there's also this tone of philosophy. The poem has a contemplative philosophical, and we also have the philosophical aspect of the poem. It's incredibly contemplative, philosophical with the undertone, and it reflects on universal truths and divine laws. Shelley presents love as a fundamental principle of existence, aligning human emotions with the workings of nature. So, taking a look at the romance and tender side of the poem, the imagery of fountains, rivers, and waves mingling conveys a sense of tenderness and romantic yearning. The speaker views love as a natural and beautiful force, using soft and affectionate language like kiss and clasp. For example, and the sunlight clasps the earth and the moonbeams kiss the sea. This romantic tone reflects the speaker's idealized view of love and their emotional vulnerability. We also have the longing and frustration throughout the poem. Beneath the persuasive and romantic surface lies a tone of longing and frustration, especially in the rhetorical questions. The speaker cannot comprehend why their love is unfulfilled when nature itself offers endless examples of unity. Why not I with thine? The question is plaintive and reveals the speaker's desperation for the beloved's affection. There are quite a few key themes in context in the poem, so we're going to take a look at them. Unity and interconnection in nature. So the poem emphasizes the interconnectedness of all elements in nature, presenting unity as a divine and universal principle. Shelley, as a romantic poet, was deeply inspired by nature and its symbolic significance. The Romantic movement celebrated nature as a source of spiritual truth and harmony, which Shelley uses here to parallel human relationships. We also have the philosophical context. Shelley's work aligns with the idea of pantheism, which sees divinity in all aspects of nature. By presenting unity as a law divine, he underscores the sacredness of natural harmony. Shelley uses this theme to argue that human love is not only natural, but inevitable, mirroring the harmony observed in the natural world. We then have love as a natural and inevitable force. The speaker views love as an extension of the natural order, presenting it as both physical and spiritual. We have the romantic idealization of love, which is portrayed as a transcendent and eternal force in romantic literature. In love's philosophy, Shelley aligns love with nature, suggesting it is as fundamental as rivers meeting oceans or sunlight touching the earth. We also have Shelley's personal context. Shelley's personal life was marked by passionate, often tumultuous relationships. This poem may reflect his yearning for emotional connection, possibly inspired by his experiences with unfulfilled or idealized love. The speaker's plea is rooted in the belief that love is as natural as the interactions in the physical world, positioning unrequited love as an unnatural disruption. Desire and unfulfilled longing is also a crucial part of the poem. Beneath the celebration of love lies a tone of frustration and longing as the speaker laments the lack of reciprocation. Shelley often wrote about longing and unfulfilled desire, reflecting his complex romantic relationships and philosophical musings on human connection. We also have the romantic exploration of emotion. Romantic poets frequently delved into themes of yearning and emotional intensity, viewing them as intrinsic to the human experience. The speaker's emotional vulnerability contrasts with the harmonious natural imagery, highlighting the tension between idealized love and personal reality. Divine law and the philosophy of love is also a great part of the poem, as love is not just natural but divinely mandated, making rejection seem a violation of sacred law. Shelley draws on romantic notions of spirituality and divine order, portraying love as a moral imperative aligned with the workings of the universe. Shelley was also an atheist and rejected traditional religion, so this could be a huge part of why he believes that natural laws are equated with sacred principles. By framing love as a divine law, the speaker strengthens their argument, making rejection not only unnatural, but also morally and spiritually wrong. And the final theme I would like to focus on is the interplay of nature and human emotion. Shelley uses nature as a mirror to human emotions, suggesting that the harmony found in nature should inspire similar harmony in human relationships. Romanticism's focus on nature for romantic poets was a reflection of human experience, with its beauty and power symbolizing emotional states. We also have literary traditions, which draw from pastoral poetry and metaphysical traditions, as we spoke about previously, where natural imagery often symbolized love and unity. The poem's ability to blur the lines between the physical world and emotional experience make the arguments for love both universal and deeply personal. So now let's take a look at some comparisons with other poems from the Love and Relationships GCSE Anthology. So When We Two Parted is a great poem that can be compared to Love's Philosophy. Both poems explore romantic relationships, but while Love's Philosophy expresses a longing for union, When We Two Parted reflects on heartbreak and separation. There are great themes that could both be intertwined between longing and loss, unreciprocated love, and emotional pain. And some key comparative points could be that Love's Philosophy is very optimistic yet frustrated in tone and is yearning for connection. When We Two Parted, however, is melancholic and regretful in tone, focusing on emotional aftermath of a failed relationship. We can also comment on the natural imagery. Shelley uses harmonious natural elements, while Byron uses cold and lifeless imagery. For example, pale grew thy cheek and cold, colder thy kiss. Another great poem to compare to would be Sonnet 29, I Think of Thee by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. This is a great comparison because both poems explore the intensity of romantic longing. But Sonnet 29 focuses on a fulfilled love rather than frustrated desire. Some key themes that could be commented on are the romantic longing, emotional and physical connections. And some key comparative points could be that Love's Philosophy uses nature to emphasize universal love laws, but the speaker remains unfulfilled. Whereas in Sonnet 29, the speaker's longing is resolved with physical presence, symbolized by natural imagery, as wild vines about a tree. However, both ultimately use nature as a metaphor for love, but differ in tone. Shelley's is persuasive, Browning's is more intimate. Porphyria's lover also a very popular choice, Robert Browning's poem. Why it's a good comparison is because both poems present possessive love, but Porphyria's lover explores a much darker and destructive aspect of love. So the key themes could be love and power, possessiveness, and longing. So while Love's philosophy idealizes love, focusing on harmony and natural unity, Porphyria's lover shows love as controlling and obsessive, ultimately leading to murder. And we also have the contrast in tone. Shelley's is hopeful, while Browning's is unsettling. And both use nature imagery, but in Browning's poem, it reflects turmoil, the storm, for instance. Neutral Tones is also a fantastic poem by Thomas Hardy. Both discuss relationships, but Neutral Tones explores bitterness and disillusionment, contrasting Shelley's idealism. We have the themes of unreciprocated love, emotional detachment, nature's role in relationships. And a key comparative point would be that nature symbolises harmony and love in Love's philosophy, but in Neutral Tones, it reflects the speaker's desolation and emotional detachment. Hardy uses muted, cold imagery, a pond edged with greyish leaves, contrasting Shelley's warm, vibrant imagery. Sunlight clasps the earth. And a final comparison I would suggest is Winter Swans by Owen Shears. Both use nature to reflect human relationships, but Winter Swans emphasises reconciliation and healing. Some key themes could be nature and relationships, unity, and overcoming challenges in love. Love's philosophy highlights frustration and yearning for connection, whereas Winter Swans depicts a moment of reconciliation, as the swans symbolise enduring love. Both use water as a metaphor, and Shelley's rivers and oceans reflect longing, while Shears' swans reflect unity and healing. So here are the overall comparisons as I have just mentioned, but I've put them into a table just to make it a little bit easier to understand on just one slide. So thank you so much for watching today's video. I really hope it has helped you. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next English literature video.